Are dates in your organization taboo? Is it something you strive to avoid? Are they things that come out of left field and you're frustrated? If so, this episode is for you because guess what? Dates are real, they matter, and Bob and I are going to show you how to make them add value instead of just being a pain in your ass. Bob, I got to tell you, I am getting frustrated lately by dates, and not in the way that I think our listeners are thinking. I get frustrated by dates,
I
but I
mean,
get,
have you been going out a lot, Josh?
oh, no, not those kind of dates, Bob. We're
Oh,
talking about project dates.
okay.
Yeah. I like to keep all that stuff personal and separate, you
I
know.
hope so. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that disclosure, Josh, to be honest.
That is season 3 of the Metacast, Josh's dating game. But on to today's episode, project dates. And I've had a series of discussions with teams or executives where someone starts talking about a deadline and like, oh, Josh isn't going to like this, or oh, whoever the agile leader is isn't going to like this, but like we have a date. And that frustrates me in many ways because dates are real. Dates matter because businesses make money and that money pays the salaries for the people. So if there's a thing, and I've been places where it's like, okay, so we're trending down in revenue. So for us to be able to maintain our staff, we need to be able to generate X amount of revenue by this date for us to be able to keep staff. And even then, people are like nervous about putting dates in front of agile teams. And that's, to me, that's wrong. And I think there's challenges both from the leadership side and from the team side that have created this thing where dates are bad. And I think dates are difficult, but that doesn't make them bad. I think they become bad because the difficulty makes people want to just like run away from it because they aren't willing to put in the effort and energy and the communication that's required to have healthy usage of dates. So that's the foundation for what we're going to talk about. There's a couple different angles that we want to go. This may turn into a multi-part series, which means French Bob comes out and then we'll have to deal with that. So I'm going to do my best to get it wrapped up so that we don't end up hearing Bob counting in French, but it may happen. So off we go with this. Bob, your initial reaction to dates, what you're seeing in the market with your customers, things like that.
As you were talking, um, as we did pre-work on this episode, Josh, and I was coming at it from, I had different thoughts reacting, and I was trying to understand what you were saying. But now this time, I sort of got it. That doesn't negate what I was thinking, but and my reaction in my head is, I think there's a them and us. There's a lot
Yeah.
of them. There's a lot of them and us in Agile, meaning, you know, us is the Agile team, and them is leadership. Could be project managers. They don't have to necessarily be managers or directors. It can be like anyone, anyone who's managing activity. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of
sorry, I just want to jump in. The other common term that I hear that I try and squash is the business. The
yeah,
business wants us to do that, and so it becomes this like thing that's separate and like, well, aren't we part of the business? So
right,
if you're hearing
right.
that, this is for you.
And this, so that's another, and the business is on the them side, and then there's us, and and who owns dates? And I think the team thinks that the business and them owns the dates. Not owns it, but they're the date people. they're they're
Yeah.
they're the daters, uh, and but we're not the daters because we can't be daters because there's all this ambiguity and we don't know. So I'm saying us is not bad, but I think one of the phenomenon in the agile community, and it's really destructive, is this divide.
Hmm.
And the teams are like, well, they're mucking around with dates. There's even jokes sometimes. There's all this the fluff around it. We'll just tell them, we'll either shake our head yes, we know it's not a real date. We'll shake our head yes, or we'll lie, right? We know it's not real, but we'll give them a date, etc., just to shut them up. So the other thing, it's a divide. It's not collaborative. which is really destructive. And if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I see that all the time. The weird thing, it's not weird, but it's malicious in that we're not working together. Like the leaders need to understand the challenges of the team. They need to look on the other side of the chasm. I actually think they're more willing. I think that the fault is more with the teams, Josh, this us and them, where they're vilifying the leaders. So I think teams vilify leaders more than leaders vilify teams, is what I'm saying. So both sides have to move in and collaborate, but I think the teams have more challenges in order to meet the leaders. There's more bias. There's more baggage on the team side. But but one, I see it. Two, it's destructive. It's disrespectful. It also destroys. I mean, it breaks continuity. It breaks understanding. And you need to work together. The teams need to be able to handle. I'll shut up in a second, Josh. But the teams need to be able to handle the reality. And this is, I don't hear this a lot from Agile teams. Like a minority, less than 20% of the teams I encounter can actually handle the fact that dates are reality. It's like oxygen, right? We need oxygen to live, and you need dates. You can't just wave your freaking hands. You have customers out there, you have commitments, you have boards, you have sales projections. It's real, folks. So you got to meet that. Now, the leaders need to meet ambiguity and not knowing and technical complexity, etc. React to anything I said. Any reactions?
I agree there's challenges in both directions. And as I found with any disagreement or dispute, there is an unfortunate chasm, as you mentioned, of information, where information is not freely flowing. One of the biggest challenges that I see is dates are prescribed or put in place or asked for without the context behind it. And oftentimes, probably the most frustrating excuse that I hear is that, oh, they can't handle it, or oh, they don't understand. And my challenge is then you're not doing a good enough job explaining, because this
Yep.
is the business. And if you're expecting a group of people to build something that sustains the business, and you're unable to educate them on like how the business is, like this is how we make money and this is how it works when a customer clicks yes to buy a product, then you have failed as a leader. But so many times it's like, oh, they can't handle it, or oh, they don't need that information, we just need them to build X, Y, and Z. And yes, you can build X, Y, and Z, but you will get a infinitely better product when the teams building the thing have real context and clarity on how the work that they do makes a difference, not only to the end users but to the business, and understanding how like, oh, this feature is going to unlock this cohort of customers that grows our addressable market. We now have 10,000 additional customers that we can go after, and we know that on average every customer makes us about $10,000 a year. So dang it, like let's go make that happen, because we know that if we can grow revenue by another couple $1 million a year, we can get another team and we can go even faster. So connecting them with all of that, helping them understand that, is a huge responsibility for leadership. And it's not just the CXOs, it's the technical leaders as well. Is there is a translation layer. It is not one to one, but really great technical leaders and really great founders figure it out. And it's not rocket science, but they are able to articulate to the people building the things, this is why it matters. This is what your work unlocks. This is how we win when we ship new features, new functions, we unlock new customers, whatever it is. And so the opposite side of that is that you have to have engineers that care, because you do have engineers that just that I just want to build a widget. I don't want to know what, I don't care. Just I like writing code. I like doing that. I think that's a relatively small subset, but there are some that are out there. What I found is engineers, builders care that what they spend their time and energy on makes a difference. So when you educate the people building the thing with this is why it matters, this is the difference that it makes, you'll find you will get a better product just because I now have an understanding of how all my hard work and effort and frustration and challenges changes our little world. And that is empowering, that is exciting, that just changes the game. But there are so many teams that are out there that are unfortunately operating with about 25% of the information that they need to be truly exceptional. And then executives start wondering, like, well, why aren't they on board? Why aren't they building? Why aren't they
Right.
doing this? And so it's like, well, what? Okay, so the first thing you have to do as leader is close that gap. And so that's what I hear. That's what I see a bunch. So that's the reaction I have to all of the things that you threw out.
I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna say, "Yes, Joshua," and it goes the other way. And the
Yes.
other way for me is teams. It's exactly the language and it's closing the gap and it's communication. And teams need to be able to explain level of difficulty, level of challenge, level of complexity, maintenance burden, technical debt, not in gobbledygook terms, but in terms of this is what we're challenged with, and explain that to leaders and get over the hurdle if they don't care about that or they can't understand. Oh, this drives me nuts, or they can't understand that. So we'll hide all of this from them. We'll complain about dates, but we won't share what's happening on the inside, right? So how and how hard, the details, right? Sharing some of the details, the behind the curtain, behind the kimono, behind the curtain part of things. And then you said something. I flip it around as well. I love what you said. And then the leaders have to care about that, right? The leaders have to, and this goes on leaders. Oh, I don't care about the details. Well, you need to care about the details because
Yeah,
so now we're
it's your business, it's your product. Like, how do you not care about the thing that like creates revenue? That's the yes. Sorry.
exactly.
I had a very
So
visceral
so it's
reaction to that.
no, 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 but it's both directions. It's
Yeah.
both. It's leaders to team to engage them. It's teams to leader to engage them, to close that gap, to close that gap where we're understanding and deal with these real world terms. Like the dates are real and the complexity is freaking real, right? Well, maybe you have to refactor some stuff. Okay, that's real. Face it. Let's not hide behind the gap. Let's face it as a collaborative group. Now, what we just described, Josh, and I've seen you do this in organizations. I think it's incredibly rare
Mhm.
in regular context and in agile context. It's not that common to get folks that are stepping in both directions. But it's like the key. It's one of those keys to. It's like the magic pixie dust behind
Yeah,
agile
yeah.
delivery, right? You know what? I'm noticing something in my email. I subscribe to something. I think it's
Yeah.
called the Leadership Flashlight, the Leadership
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
Oh, it's much
Lighthouse.
stronger than a flashlight.
It is
It
much
is,
stronger than it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
and I'm noticing like this regular tempo of stuff. Where can you tell me who writes that? Tell me
I
more about
do.
the Lighthouse.
Twice a week for 10 weeks now, I have
Oh,
created blog post, which for those of you that have been around long enough know that that is a monumental number. I'm very proud of it and I'm excited about it. Feedback has been good. And most importantly, it puts a smile on Bob's face because I now have the capability, like he does, to say, I wrote an article about that. I'm going to put a link in the description.
exactly.
It really is thoughts and experience that I have around leadership, and that's just a big passion of mine, and I know there are folks that wanna get better at it, so that is my goal, twice a week in your inbox, a little bit of personal story, a little bit of theory, a little bit of advice on how to get better as a leader. So, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, click the subscribe button.
Real quickly, I want to add something, Josh.
Yeah.
So everyone in this, Josh Anderson hasn't gotten enough credit in the Metacast and enough exposure. And I'm just the Lighthouse. Josh is a fantastic leader. Not leadership by academics or leadership by book, leadership by doing and results, driving results and being human and genuine. And the lighthouse represents that. So damn it, there's wisdom in there, right? And it's untapped. You want to get it early. You want to get it now because at some point, Josh Anderson is going to be the Patrick Lencioni of leadership,
Mm.
and you want to catch this fire early before you get burned.
I believe it's rare because it's hard, consistent work that has to be put in multiple directions every day.
Yeah,
There is no single conversation that you're going to have with a team or teams or executives. It is a slugfest, and you have to recognize that you are fundamentally changing the way the organization thinks about dates and communication. So you have to accept that we are where we are right now. We aspire to get to this point that Bob and Josh are talking about, where there's a free flow of communication, there's understanding, there's investment from both sides on, okay, I hear you, I understand, we're going to figure this out. That isn't where a lot of places are. So there are many companies that I've helped or peers that I've worked with where you put in that first month and you're trying to educate, and maybe you don't see the results that you're hoping for. You're not going to get the results in a month. It's going to take time, effort, and energy of you or a group of your peers leading the charge to transform the way that we think about things. And the reason why it's hard is there are a handful of uncomfortable conversations that have to be had. Like the situation that you're in right now, where leaders, executives expect a date. And you ask why. And this is a question that I've asked. I'm like, okay, cool. So we have that date. Why that date? Like what is the driver for that date? Because I'm assuming there's a gap, there's information that they have that I don't have yet of the driver behind that date. And if it's one of those things of, oh, well, actually, we're going to go under if we don't have this thing by here generating this amount of revenue, then it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to really make sure we figure that out. Then there's times where it's like, well, somebody said that date like 3 months ago. So we've kind of anchored on it, and like we don't miss dates. So that's just what the date is. And then that's where the discussion comes in of, okay, cool, but somebody threw a date out 3 months ago and we have learned a ton in those 3 months. What should we do with that learning? Should we like throw it out the door? Should we just ignore it? Like there is new information that we have that we can
right.
choose to do something with, or we can just turn a blind eye and like pretend it's not there and just say and continue down the happy path and la 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 la, we're going to hit it, and then surprise surprise, you get close to the end and like somebody feels obligated to say like we're not going to make it. And those are difficult, challenging discussions to have on both sides, and that's where I've spent a fair amount of my time trying to help companies just navigate that and be able to see those little victories and those little wins as you begin to transform the way the organization thinks about dates and the importance and the value of them from all directions.
Now I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Josh, in that
Yeah.
you painted this like little pity pat, right? Oh, it's so hard to change. Oh, we'll slowly be able to communicate and close the gap, right? Maybe by the time my grandchildren, right, are retiring, maybe we can do that. I'm like, bullshit. This is not a hard problem. This is like, stop being closed minded. Right. Open up your freaking, like, everyone reach into your head right now, Metacasters, and open up your freaking mind and say, I have to be curious about the other side. Right. I mean, imagine, you're building a house. Are you going to act like this with a home builder? No. You're going to freaking collaborate around dates and your expectations and things like that. And so, to me, no absolutes. There's no absolute. I own dates and you own technology. None of that crap. None of those boundaries. We need to work together. boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, right? We need to work together. We need to get rid of the closed mindedness, and we need to be curious about the other side. Now, it may take a little time. There may be a little bit of a flurry of what the hell's going on, but this is something you need to stop. Don't take years. Don't take months for this. Like, dive in. Josh said something earlier. This is your freaking business. He didn't say it quite like that, but we all should be on the same page. This is what we're doing. This is our reason for being, our reason d'etre, our raison d'etre. I can't help it. But it is, and so we need to dive into this stuff. Leaders, you need to start explaining the why, and then listening and asking the teams about technology. Teams, you need to be. The other thing I want to emphasize is there's trust. I see teams all the time. Oh, they don't they don't trust the pressure that the leaders are communicating. Oh, they've just been wishy washy. You know what? Maybe assume that the leaders like were really bold and audacious, and this is the date that the market needs, right? So there's a trust factor. And leaders, when you're listening to your teams, don't nickel and dime them. Oh, show me the code. I'll show you how to get it out the door in 2 weeks. No, trust your team. So there's this close the gap dialogue, but there's also sort of trustfulness on the other side. And then let's work together to figure out how we maximize what we're doing. Josh,
Yeah.
I wasn't strongly just, but it's the time frame. This is an imperative, for God's sakes, right?
Yeah. I am going to quote Pulp Fiction and say, allow me to retort. Uh, and all I'm really retorting is that last piece you talked about, that trust where it becomes instinctive. That's what is going to take months. I agree with Bob. Like, you have to come in and say, and this is what, Bob, what I end up getting paid to do is coming in and saying, like, hey, we need to change. This is how we need to change. This is how we need to start. And over time you'll get to where it becomes natural, but you're going to have a lot of discussions. And one of the things that I always say is, like, there's going to be an executive that is going to say something very akin to, it's just a checkbox, or it's just this, like, I don't understand how it takes this long. And every place I've been, that has been said by a leader, and every place that I've been, they have not had the context. So that's where the education has to happen. And you know what? Every time I've challenged leaders or executives to use, and I think Bob has a really great term of being curious, they lean in and they care and they understand. Because I tell you what, you're going to have a hard time finding a person or a group of people that care about the success of that company more than that group. So when you say, hey, here's how you can unlock success, it might be hard, it might be uncomfortable, but daggone it, they are going to lean in and they are going to give it their darndest. It might be messy, they might fumble some things, but they are going to give it everything they have. And I have yet to see a leader not respond in that manner. So it's there. Us on the technical side, we have to extend trust as well. That trust has to go in both ways. So it's it might feel scary, it might be difficult, but you have to do it. Otherwise, your life's not going to get better. And you're just going to be complaining about the same problems, the same frustrations for the next N number of years, and life's not going to get better. And I don't like to live in a world where we're just like accept something as difficult or annoying or frustrating. Like, do something about it.
Absolutely. I'm going to let me retort.
Oh,
No, there's no retort here. I
oh,
just wanted
dang.
to say it. No, I want to amplify what you're absolutely right, Josh. Mark down the date and time, please. But it's so what I was saying is have the conversations. Don't be willy nilly. Don't tap dance. Whatever euphemisms I could have. Don't immediately start opening your mind and having the conversations. Now, that being said, trust will not immediately emerge.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to add to trust is assume positive intent as well. So part of it is extending trust and assuming positive intent on the part of the other party, and that'll go a long way. But that does take time to do. That does take time. But start and let's start. Close that gap. Whatever you can do. Have we nailed this, Josh, or are there
I
other aspects
feel
you want to?
like we we serve the appetizer. I feel like there's still an entree there. Probably good for us to go brainstorm on that and have a uh, part two. Ugh, I don't like putting those words in front of you, but having a part two to this where,
It would
like,
it would warm my heart. Go
I
ahead.
know, I know, where we take a situation and, Bob, you and
Oh,
I have played the good cop and bad cop.
oh,
And I
oh.
think walking through, because you and I think, have different approaches to how we handle this based on some of the pre-work that we did prior to this. So I think it would be good to go through that and give real world examples of what you're going to run up against and ways that you can work through that.
I like that. I like that. A part deux,
Oh, there it
but a
is.
meaningful part deux, not an artificial part deux,
Right.
right? I
Yes.
just love saying "duh."
I know.
I'm gonna be saying it all day. And did you get that I don't know if I got it right, but that raisin d'etre?
I
That
didn't know what it was. I just smiled and
reason
smile and wave,
it's
boys.
French. I think my interpretation is reason for being.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Somebody in the comments, on YouTube, please validate whether Bob is accurate with his French or
Oh,
not.
please. Oh, please. And I will not be offended either way. All right.
Uh,
It's just it is what it is. But I maybe land this episode, Josh, with this is as we were talking about it, not only is it incredibly prevalent, it's incredibly destructive, but it's something that really needs to be addressed for success. It's out there muddying the waters. I don't even think a lot of organizations are aware of it. It's almost like we get into the patterns of this way. We get into these anti patterns of this is the way we behave.
mhm,
I'll pick on leaders, right? And trust is a big part of it. Oh, if I don't squeeze the lemon hard enough, right? The juice is not going to flow on its own. I got to squeeze the lemon. So there are these like sort of mental habits or patterns that we've assumed. Same thing on the teams. The teams, oh, these pointy-headed leaders, they couldn't write a piece of code to escape a prison, right? So there's some negativity around that or assumptions. That's why I emphasize assume positive intent
yeah,
because there's a lot of a negative intent out there. There's a lot of untrust out there. I don't even know if it's you can connect it to psychological safety. I mean, it is, but not as strongly. It's just it's part of this dance. So Metacasters, really be wary. Really try to run some experiments. Call them like gap narrowing experiments in this communication, and it really is just communication.
yep, it
All
certainly
right.
is.
Do
All right.
you want to stick a fork in it, my friend?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, in part,
Oh my gosh.
in part,
I
So,
don't think
so
is the
I
is the
know.
appropriate.
I got something. I have quite a generous nose,
Oh my
so
gosh.
so it could be something up in there.
Who knows?
So but so from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
And from beautiful downtown Fuquay Varina, North Carolina.
I'm Bob Galen.
And I'm Josh Anderson.
Shake,
And bake.
take care, y'all.